Commander Veshtok stood on the bridge of his flagship, staring at the holographic display of the Sol system. His claws tapped rhythmically against the console as he reviewed the data for the third time. Everything pointed to the same conclusion. Earth was perfect. The Krell Empire had been expanding for 3,000 years. Veshtok had personally overseen the conquest of 47 worlds. He knew what a vulnerable planet looked like, and Earth displayed every single sign. The humans were broadcasting their presence across space without any concern for who might be listening. Their radio waves carried sounds and images that revealed everything about their civilization. They had no idea how foolish they were being. "Commander, the analysis is complete," his intelligence officer reported. The younger Krell's voice carried barely concealed excitement. "The human homeworld shows no orbital defenses. No weapons platforms. No shielding. Their moon is completely empty, except for some flags and footprints from primitive exploration missions." Veshtok pulled up the tactical display. Earth rotated slowly in front of him, covered in blues and greens and whites. Such a beautiful world, and so poorly defended. The humans had satellites, but they were simple things that could barely maintain orbit. Their space vessels used chemical combustion to escape their gravity well. Chemical combustion. The Krell had abandoned such crude methods millennia ago. What about their military capabilities? Veshtok asked, though he already knew the answer. Primitive in the extreme, sir. They still use kinetic weapons, actual projectiles fired from tubes using explosive powder. Their largest weapons are fusion devices, but even those are crude. They barely understand the physics behind them. The intelligence officer brought up images of human soldiers. They fight each other constantly, Commander. Nearly 200 separate nations, all competing for resources and territory. They've never unified, not even once. This was the best part. Veshtok had seen it before with other species, but never to this degree. The humans were so busy fighting themselves that they had no concept of external threats. Their entire military philosophy was built around attacking each other. They had no unified command structure, no planetary defense force, no protocol for responding to invasion from space. "Show me their detection capabilities," Veshtok ordered. The display changed to show Earth's sensor networks. They were laughable. The humans had some radio telescopes pointed at the sky, searching for signals from other civilizations. They had no idea that those civilizations had been watching them for decades, evaluating whether they were worth the effort of conquest. The Krell Scouts had been operating in the Sol system for 2 full cycles now, and the humans had never detected a single one. Veshtok made his decision. Prepare the invasion fleet. Standard subjugation protocol for pre-FTL species. 3 battle groups should be sufficient. Only 3, sir. The intelligence officer seemed surprised. Most pre-FTL conquests require at least 5 groups. Most pre-FTL species aren't this fractured, Veshtok replied. The humans will surrender once they see our ships. They lack the unity to mount any meaningful resistance. 3 groups is generous, if anything. The orders went out across the Krell fleet. Ships began moving into formation, their crews preparing for the easiest conquest they would likely ever experience. Veshtok felt a familiar satisfaction settling over him. Another world for the Empire. Another primitive species that would learn their place in the galactic order. The fleet crossed the boundary of the boundary of the Sol system 3 days later. Veshtok watched as they passed the orbit of Neptune, then Uranus, then Saturn. The gas giants drifted by, silent and undisturbed. Human probes had visited some of these worlds. Tiny mechanical things that could barely send signals back to Earth. The Krell sensors detected a few of them, still functioning after decades of lonely operation. "Sir, we're approaching Jupiter's orbit," the navigator announced. Veshtok nodded. Jupiter was massive, its storms visible even from this distance. The humans had sent probes here too. One of them was still orbiting, transmitting data that no one was sophisticated enough to fully analyze. The Krell fleet swept past it without slowing. Mars appeared ahead, a red dot that grew larger as they approached. Veshtok studied it carefully. The humans had developed an obsession with this planet. They had sent dozens of robots to its surface, rolling vehicles that analyzed rocks and soil. They dreamed of colonizing it someday, of creating settlements on its dusty plains. Those dreams would never come true. Mars would belong to the Krell Empire, along with everything else in this system. "Commander, I'm detecting something unusual," the sensor officer said suddenly. Veshtok turned. "Explain." "The humans, sir. Their military activities have stopped. All of them, across the entire planet." "Stopped? You mean they're standing down?" "Not exactly. They're still at their positions, but the fighting has ceased. Every conflict, every battle, every skirmish, they've all gone quiet in the last hour." Veshtok considered this. It made sense in a way. The humans had probably detected the fleet. Their primitive sensors must have finally noticed the Krell ships approaching their homeworld. They were frightened, freezing up the way prey animals did when predators drew near. It was a natural response. "Fear," Veshtok said with satisfaction. "They know we're coming, and they're paralyzed by fear. Maintain course. We'll be in orbit around Earth within the day." The fleet continued forward, passing Mars without incident. Earth grew larger on the displays, that beautiful blue marble hanging in the darkness of space. Veshtok began composing the surrender demand he would broadcast to the humans. It would be simple and direct. Submit or be destroyed. Every species received the same message. Most chose submission. As they crossed the orbit of Earth's moon, Veshtok allowed himself a moment of triumph. Another perfect conquest for his record. The Empire would reward him well for this. Earth was resource-rich and strategically positioned. The humans themselves would make adequate workers once they were properly conditioned to serve. He had no idea that everything he believed about Earth was exactly what the humans wanted him to believe. The trap had been set years ago, baited with carefully crafted weakness, and the Krell had just taken their first step into it. Asterisk. The Krell fleet settled into orbit around Earth, like predators surrounding cornered prey. Veshtok watched his tactical display with satisfaction as his ships took up positions over every major continent. 3 battle groups, 97 vessels total. More than enough firepower to reduce every human city to ash within hours. He prepared to broadcast the standard surrender terms when his communications officer interrupted. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the planet's surface. Already?" They're quick to beg for mercy. Veshtok gestured for the transmission to be played. The voice that came through was calm, almost pleasant. It spoke in perfect Krell language, which should have been impossible. "Greetings, Commander Veshtok of the Krell Empire. This is Coordinator Chun, speaking on behalf of humanity. We welcome you to our home system." Veshtok's claws tightened on his console. How did they know his name? How did they speak Krell? "This is Commander Veshtok. You will prepare to receive. We've been expecting you," the human continued, interrupting him. "We tracked your scout ships 2 years ago. We've watched you watching us, and we've prepared accordingly. We'd like to invite you to send the landing party to Geneva. We should discuss terms." The bridge went silent. Veshtok felt a strange sensation crawling up his spine. "You tracked our scouts?" "Of course. Did you really think your cloaking technology was undetectable? It's quite elegant, actually, but it leaves a distinctive gravitational wake. We've been monitoring it since your first probe entered the system. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong." Veshtok pulled up the intelligence reports again, searching for any mention of human detection capabilities that could spot Krell stealth technology. There was nothing. The humans were primitive. They had to be primitive. "Commander," his sensor officer called out urgently, "I'm detecting anomalies across the planet. Underground facilities that weren't showing on our scans before. They're massive, sir. Some of them go down kilometers." "Sensor error," Veshtok snapped. "Recheck the equipment." "I've checked 3 times, sir. The facilities are there. They're either new or they were somehow shielded from our scans until now." Veshtok zoomed in on one of the facilities. It was located beneath a mountain range in North America. The energy readings coming from it were substantial, far beyond what a pre-F-tile civilization should possess. He switched to another location. Antarctica showed similar structures, hidden beneath the ice. Europe, Asia, Africa, every continent had them. "This is a bluff," Veshtok said, though his voice lacked conviction. "They're trying to frighten us with false sensor readings." "Commander, the satellites are moving," the tactical officer reported. Veshtok looked at the orbital display. The human satellites, those crude pieces of metal that barely functioned, were changing position. They moved with precision, forming a grid pattern around the planet. And they were moving far too quickly for chemical thrusters. "Those aren't satellites," someone whispered. Coordinator Chun's voice came through again. "We understand you might have some doubts about our capabilities, Commander. That's natural. Everything you've seen about Earth was designed to create a very specific impression. We're quite good at deception, you see. We've been practicing it on each other for thousands of years." Veshtok made a decision. He needed to reassert dominance, to show these humans that the Krell Empire didn't respond to tricks. "Target the facility in North America. Surgical strike. Minimal yield." "Sir, are you certain?" "We haven't. Fire!" A plasma lance shot down from one of the orbiting cruisers, a beam of superheated energy that could vaporize a city block in seconds. It shrieked through the atmosphere, leaving a glowing trail across the sky. Veshtok watched with grim satisfaction as it approached the target. The beam stopped, 300 meters. Above the human facility, the plasma strike hit something invisible and simply stopped. The energy dissipated, spreading across what appeared to be a shield dome that lit up like a small sun for a moment before fading back to transparency. The facility below sat completely undamaged. "Shields," Veshtok breathed. "They have shields." The human facility responded. Railguns emerged from concealed positions on the mountain's surface. They fired in sequence, 6 tungsten rods launched at velocities that made Veshtok's sensor officer curse in disbelief. The rounds crossed the distance from surface to orbit in less than 2 seconds. 2 Krell cruisers took direct hits. The tungsten penetrators punched through their shields as if they weren't there, ripping through armor and hull in a shower of debris and atmosphere. Alarms screamed across the bridge as damage reports flooded in. 12 dead on the first cruiser, 8 on the second. Both vessels were crippled but intact. "Return fire," Veshtok shouted. "Belay that order." Coordinator Chen's voice cut across his command. She was somehow broadcasting directly into his bridge, overriding his communications. "Commander, if you escalate further, I will be forced to demonstrate our full capabilities. You won't survive that demonstration." Every screen on the bridge flickered and changed. Coordinator Chun's face appeared, a human woman with dark hair and calm eyes. She sat in what looked like a comfortable office, as if this were a routine business meeting. Behind her, Veshtok could see other humans working at consoles covered in displays he couldn't read. "How are you in our systems?" Veshtok demanded. "Your cybersecurity is approximately 50 years behind ours," Chun replied. "We've had access to your fleet's computers since you entered the orbit of Mars. We've been polite enough not to do anything with that access until now." Veshtok felt his world tilting. Everything they knew about humanity was wrong. Completely, catastrophically wrong. "Let me save you some time, Commander," Chun continued. "You're currently evaluating your options. Retreat or continue the assault. I should inform you that retreat isn't actually an option anymore. You're already inside our defense perimeter. It extends to just past Mars. Those chemical rockets you saw in our historical broadcasts. They were real, but they were from 50 years ago. We've been maintaining that image very carefully for quite some time." "Why?" Veshtok managed to ask. Chun smiled, but it wasn't a friendly expression. "Because we needed you to commit to hostility first, Commander. We needed you to fire the first shot. You see, humanity learned something very important a long time ago. The most crucial part of any conflict isn't winning. It's making absolutely certain that everyone knows who started it. You've just given us legal justification under 17 different interstellar accords that you don't even know exist yet." Human ships began decloaking across the system. Dozens of them, sleek and predatory, bearing no resemblance to the primitive vessels Earth had displayed. They were smaller than Krell vessels, but moved with frightening speed and grace. Veshtok realized with absolute certainty that he had led his fleet into a trap. Earth wasn't prey. It was the predator. And the Krell had just walked into its jaws. Veshtok's fleet tried to run. He gave the order to retreat, to activate faster-than-light drives and escape the Sol system before the situation deteriorated further. The drives refused to respond. Every ship in his fleet reported the same error. Their FTL systems were locked down, completely unresponsive. "They're in our engines," his engineering officer reported, voice shaking. "The humans have control of our jump drives. We can't leave." Coordinator Chun's face remained on every screen. "I apologize for the inconvenience, Commander, but we can't let you leave just yet. There are protocols to follow. Procedures. We're quite serious about doing things properly." The human ships moved into formation around the Krell fleet. They didn't fire, didn't threaten, just positioned themselves with mathematical precision. Veshtok counted 37 vessels, less than half his fleet's numbers, but he knew numbers meant nothing now. These humans had been preparing for this moment while the Krell had been congratulating themselves on finding easy prey. "What do you want?" Veshtok asked. His pride was gone now, burned away by the reality of his situation. "For you to stand down completely," Chun replied. "Power down all weapons systems. Deactivate your shields. Prepare to receive boarding parties. We'll be cataloging your technology and taking custody of your crews. You and your people will be treated well, Commander. We're not monsters. But you did attempt to invade our world, and there are consequences for that. You said we're inside your defense perimeter. You've known about galactic civilization this whole time." "For 93 years, actually," Chun confirmed. "We made first contact in 1947 with a species called the Ventari. Lovely people. They warned us about how things work out here in the galaxy. About species like yours, Commander. Empires that probe every new world they find, looking for weakness, testing to see if a planet is worth conquering." Veshtok felt sick. The Ventari are merchants, pacifists. They don't involve themselves in military matters. Exactly. Which is why they needed friends who would involve themselves in military matters. We became those friends. They taught us about galactic politics, about the rules and customs we needed to understand. In exchange, we've provided them with security in several sectors where pirates and raiders made trade difficult. A boarding craft approached Veshtok's flagship. It was small, sleek, moving with controlled burns that spoke of sophisticated maneuvering systems. The craft latched onto the airlock with barely a sound. Veshtok watched on the internal sensors as the airlock cycled, and a squad of human soldiers entered his ship. They wore armor that seemed to shift and flow, adapting to their movements. Their weapons were compact, but the energy signatures were unmistakable. Plasma rifles, particle beams, and what looked like portable rail cannons. Equipment that matched or exceeded Krell military technology. The soldiers moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency, clearly familiar with Krell ship layouts. "You've been inside our ships before," Veshtok said quietly. "We've purchased several decommissioned Krell vessels from salvagers over the years," Chun explained. "We've studied your technology extensively. We've studied everyone's technology, actually. The galaxy is quite diverse. Lots to learn." The human soldiers reached the bridge. They entered with weapons ready, but not aimed, a professional courtesy that somehow made everything worse. The lead soldier, a man with gray hair and steady eyes, nodded to Veshtok. "Commander, I'm Captain Morrison. We're here to secure your vessel and ensure the safety of your crew. If you and your officers cooperate, this will go smoothly." Veshtok looked at his own crew. They were frightened, confused, waiting for his orders. He could order them to fight. They would obey. But it would be suicide, and he knew it. "Stand down," he told them. "Comply with their instructions." Over the next hours, Veshtok watched as his fleet was systematically dismantled. The humans were incredibly thorough. They removed every weapon system, every piece of military hardware, cataloging each component with meticulous care. They stripped the engines, the shields, the sensors. They even took the backup systems. The Krell vessels were left as hollow shells, capable of life support and basic maneuvering but nothing more. The crews were transported to facilities on Luna, Earth's moon. Veshtok found himself in a comfortable room with a bed, a desk, and a window that looked out over a massive human installation. The moon wasn't empty at all. It was a fortress. Vast weapons platforms extended from its surface, aimed at the space around Earth. Manufacturing facilities stretched across kilometers, producing ships and equipment with industrial efficiency that matched the Krell Empire's best foundries. Coordinator Chen visited him on the third day. She came alone, without guards, and sat across from him in his detention room. "I thought you deserved an explanation," she said. "A full one, not just what we've told you so far." "Why did you do this?" Veshtok asked. "You clearly had the power to destroy us the moment we entered your system. Why the deception? Why make yourselves look weak?" "Because destruction isn't the goal, Commander. Never was. If we'd simply destroyed your fleet, the Krell Empire would have sent a larger force. Then another. The cycle would continue until one of us was annihilated. We didn't want that." "Then what did you want?" Chun pulled up a holographic display. It showed the Krell Empire's territory, a vast expanse of controlled space. But as Veshtok watched, sections of it began changing color. "This is happening right now," Chun said. 73 different civilizations have been watching our encounter. We made sure of it. We invited observers, provided them with full sensor access, let them see everything. They now have irrefutable proof that the Krell Empire initiates wars of aggression against species you deem primitive. The map continued changing. Trade routes closed. Alliances shifted. The Krell Empire's economy was already beginning to collapse under sudden sanctions and embargoes. "You're destroying us without firing a shot," Veshtok whispered. "We're forcing consequences for your actions," Chung corrected. "Your empire has conquered 47 worlds, Commander. You've enslaved billions. Did you think there would never be a reckoning? We're not attacking you. The galactic community is holding you accountable for what you've done. Some of those worlds were primitive. Pre-FTL, like you pretended to be. Pretended being the key word. They were actually primitive. They couldn't defend themselves. We can. And we've just demonstrated to every other predatory empire out there that Earth is not and will never be easy prey. Veshtok saw it then, the full scope of the trap. You're setting an example, using us to send the message. Yes, the message is simple. Humanity looks weak because we choose to look weak. It's bait. Anyone who takes that bait will regret it completely. On the holographic display, Veshtok saw Krell colony worlds beginning to rebel. The subject species they'd conquered were rising up, armed with weapons humanity had quietly provided. The empire was fracturing, not from external invasion, but from internal collapse. Everything they'd built through conquest was crumbling. "You've doomed my people," Veshtok said. Chun's expression softened slightly. "No, Commander. We've doomed your empire. Your people will survive. The ones who want peace, who want to trade and cooperate rather than conquer, they'll find places in the new order. But the Krell Empire as it exists, that ends today." She stood to leave, then paused at the door. "You'll be returned home soon. You and your crews. We're repairing your ships enough for basic FTL travel. You'll carry a message back to your homeworld. Earth is not defenseless. Earth is not weak. And anyone who makes the mistake of thinking otherwise will learn exactly what humanity is capable of when we stop pretending." 3 weeks after the failed invasion. Veshtok stood on the bridge of his flagship once more. The ship was functional, but barely recognizable. The humans had stripped it of everything military, leaving only basic systems. Life support, navigation, communications, and a bare-bones FTL drive that could manage perhaps 2 light years per jump. It would take months to reach Krell space at this speed dot around him. His crew worked in silence. They had been treated well during their detention. The humans had provided good food, medical care, even entertainment. But every kindness had been a reminder of how completely they'd been defeated. The humans could have killed them all. Instead, they'd been almost gentle in their dismantling of the Krell fleet. Captain Morrison came aboard one final time before departure. He carried a data crystal, which he handed to Veshtok. "This is for your government. It contains a full record of everything that happened here, along with humanity's formal position on future interactions with the Krell Empire." "Which is?" Veshtok asked. "Peace, if you want. Trade, if you're interested. But any further acts of aggression against Earth or our allies will be met with a response that makes this seem gentle." Morrison paused. "We don't want to be your enemies, Commander. But we will be if you force the issue." Veshtok took the crystal. "You've destroyed the Empire. Our economy is in ruins. Half our subject worlds are in open rebellion. You've armed them with weapons we can't match." "We've given oppressed people the tools to free themselves," Morrison corrected. "What they do with those tools is their choice. If the Krell Empire falls, it's because it was built on a foundation that couldn't sustain its own weight. Conquest isn't stable, Commander. You should have learned that long ago." The human captain left. Veshtok gave the order to depart, and his crippled flagship limped away from Earth. As they passed Mars, he looked back at the Sol system one last time. Human ships were everywhere now, no longer hiding. They patrolled the outer planets, maintained stations on asteroids, and moved between worlds with casual confidence. This was their space, and they defended it absolutely. The journey home was long and humiliating. Every Krell outpost they passed had already heard what happened at Earth. News traveled fast in the galaxy, especially news of a major empire's defeat. Some outposts offered assistance. Others turned them away, afraid of associating with failure. Veshtok endured it all in silence. When they finally reached the Krell homeworld, Veshtok was summoned immediately before the High Command. He stood in the Great Council chamber where he'd received his orders months ago, facing the same officials who'd been so confident about Earth's conquest. They looked different now. Older, worried. Their entire civilization was teetering on the edge of collapse. "You failed," the High Commander said. It wasn't an accusation, just a statement of fact. "The intelligence was wrong," Veshtok replied. "Everything we knew about humanity was a deliberate fabrication. They've been part of galactic civilization for almost a century. They've been waiting for someone like us to take the bait." He played the data crystal. The Council watched in silence as Earth's true capabilities were revealed. They saw the ships, the weapons, the technology that matched or exceeded Krell standards. They saw Coordinator Chun's explanation of humanity's strategy, heard her calm voice explaining how they'd turned the Krell Empire's own aggression against it. "They've been sharing this broadcast across the entire galaxy," Veshtok explained. "Every major civilization has seen it. They all know now that the Empire attacks primitive worlds. Our reputation is destroyed. Our trade partners have abandoned us. Our subject species are rebelling. And we can't stop any of it because humanity has provided them with weapons and support. Then we'll strike at Earth with everything we have," one council member suggested. "A full battle fleet. Overwhelming force. That's what they want," Veshtok said quietly. "They're hoping we'll escalate. Every ship we send to Earth is a ship we can't use to hold our territory together. And they'll destroy whatever we send. I've seen their capabilities. We can't beat them militarily. They've had a century to prepare while we underestimated them." The council chamber fell silent. Finally, the High Commander spoke. "What do they want from us?" "Peace," Veshtok said. "They want us to stop conquering, stop enslaving, stop expanding through force. If we do that, they'll allow normal trade and diplomatic relations. If we don't..." He didn't need to finish the sentence. Over the following months, Veshtok watched his civilization transform. The Krell Empire didn't fall overnight, but it changed fundamentally. Subject worlds gained independence. Trade replaced tribute. The military, once the pride of Krell society, was reduced to a defensive force. It was humiliating for a culture built on conquest. But it was survival. Coordinator Chun sent a personal message to Veshtok 6 months after the failed invasion. "I wanted you to know that we don't take pleasure in what happened to your empire. But we won't apologize for it either. You came to Earth planning to enslave billions of humans. The fact that we were able to stop you without massive bloodshed is something we're quite proud of." Asterisk. The message continued. "We're watching 3 other potential aggressors now, Commander. Species that are currently evaluating whether Earth might be worth attacking. We're updating our bait, making ourselves look even weaker than before. Eventually, one of them will make the same mistake you did. And when they do, the galaxy will see the same thing they saw with you. Earth doesn't forgive unprovoked aggression." Veshtok understood then that humanity's trap wasn't just for the Krell. It was permanent. An ongoing strategy that would catch every predatory species that thought Earth looked defenseless. The humans had turned their entire planet into bait, a lure that would keep attracting threats, until everyone in the galaxy learned the lesson. He thought about responding to Chun's message, but decided against it. There was nothing to say. The humans had won completely, not just the battle, but the entire conflict. They'd turned the Krell Empire's strength into weakness, used their own aggression as a weapon against them, and done it all while claiming self-defense. Years later, Veshtok heard that another empire had attacked Earth. The Zrelan Confederacy, confident in their superior numbers, had sent a massive invasion force. The results were the same. The humans had dismantled the fleet, documented the aggression, and broadcast everything across the galaxy. The Zrelan Confederacy was now facing the same collapse the Krell Empire had experienced. Veshtok realized something that should have been obvious from the start. Humanity didn't just look defenseless. They looked like the perfect target, like prey that couldn't possibly fight back. And every predatory species in the galaxy would eventually be drawn to that appearance of weakness. It was brilliant and terrifying. Earth had turned itself into an eternal trap, one that would keep catching aggressors for generations.